was one of the greatest empires to have ever ruled on the lands of Ardell. At its height, it ruled as far north as Valda to as far south as Haranon, from as far east as Eliril to as far west as Eleanor. This empire challenged the hegemony of Arcadia, brought the Aulanaic civilization to Gantera, and made its mark in history, one in which it lasts to this day. But IKARASAI was not built in a day, nor was it even its capital. To get the full picture, we must go back 30,000 years to the founding era of Ardell to see its origins. According to Ardellisian legend, the goddess Aulen vanquished the evil of the continent to the deep seas. In the newly liberated lands, she created 3 sacred mandates for the 3 key cities of the continent. The city of Arcadia was given the mandate of justice. The city of Eleanor was given the mandate of magic. And finally, the city of Elvandor was given the mandate of leadership. It was said that the first king of Elvandor, Iarnan I, was crowned by Aulen herself, made as the city's protector and its first ruler, beginning the first of many dynasties that ruled IKARASAI for over 3 full millennia. IKARASAI had a total of 6 dynasties that ruled the empire from different time periods. The first was Iarnan's family, the daughter of Anyaxir. The Vanyaxir's legacy was one of unification and war. At the time, Gantera was a very different place. Before IKARASAI rose, there were many kingdoms, cultures, languages on the subcontinent. There were the Ikari, the Khanzari, the Eniktib, the Varadals, the Mokhtawi. Each of these peoples had their own unique cultures and languages, their own civilizations and ways of life. However, at the start of the 23rd century BBA, under Iarnan I, he launched a war of unification for the Ikari lordships and cities. This period was known as the First Unification War, lasting 5 centuries. It was headed by 3 kings of Elvandor, Iarnan I, Iarnan II, and ending with Hilikvar I. After the unification of the Ikari kingdoms, the last Vanyaxir king, Iarnan III, was assassinated in 1824 ABA by a Varadal assassin. This led to the first of many dynastic conflicts that would rock the empire's history and lead to the rise of many others after them. A civil war almost broke out, as it was seen that the mandate of leadership was gone. But an elf by the name of Lutzar I Norskunya came to the throne of Elvandor with a great army from the city of Alvia. Previously, he was an ally to the Vanyaxir family, and seeing their death, took advantage of the chaos and declared the mandate of leadership would continue with his dynasty. Of course, many objected to it, but those who challenged his rule were dealt with severely, managing to secure his control over the kingdom. Lutzar then concentrated his efforts on expansion. First, he attacked the disorganized fiefdoms of the Khanzari. These squabbling states used to be united under Kal Gutsar, but collapsed directly after his rule, allowing Lutzar to steamroll the southern fiefdom with ease. The Noroskunya dynasty lasted for 700 years, with a total of 6 monarchs. During their rule, they expanded the kingdom's territory to be far larger than it was under the Vanyaxir. But conquest wasn't the only thing the dynasty was known for. The fourth king of the dynasty, Lutsar II, was an administrative reformer, a king who concentrated on maintaining internal stability and expanded the city of Elvandor 3 times its original size. While the fifth monarch, Irianon V, had managed to mostly peacefully subjugate half of the Moktawe clans south of Elvandor and proceeded to build great irrigation projects within the Moktawe clans, integrating them to become lordships and fiefdoms. However, the dynasty ended in 1236 BBA with the overthrow of the tyrant Vasarok II after he had failed to pay his armies, leading to General Akimre Corosaray to siege Elvandor and kill Vasarok, leading him to become king of Elvandor under the new Corosaray dynasty, beginning the first golden age of the realm. During the slow rise of Elvandor and Kintera, on the continent, the Arcadia kingdom expanded massively throughout Ardell. In the 11th century BBA, under King Runmari of House Amarandoale, the kingdom expanded greatly, managing to take control of the sacred mountain itself and reaching the borders of the Queendom of Eleanor. At first, Elvandor, under the 2 previous dynasties, never bothered with the continent, and even saw the Arcadia takeover of the sacred mount as a good thing. But as their kingdom expanded greatly, they began to be concerned. When Runmari conquered Eleanor and unified into the Empire of Arcadia, they were alarmed. The imperial title was given to a ruler if they had managed to unify all 3 sacred mandates under the same banner. Arcadia only unified 2. Cantaran temples began to complain to the matriarch at the time, Mira III, about his crowning, but she ignored their concerns. Then finally, one day in 1211 BBA, Emperor Runmari sent a letter to King Akimre ordering that Elvandor submit to the imperial banner of Arcadia to unite the continent under the holy wings of Allen. Akimre then wrote back, refusing to do so, famously proclaiming,
"Unless the goddess herself came down from the astral realm to order us to stand down, no mortal shall make us submit bloodlessly. Even if it is the matriarch herself that says so, she has falsely declared you an emperor without ruling all 3 mandates. If she can do so regardless of that fact, then my words declaring myself the emperor are just as binding as hers."
To understand the conflict between IKARASAI and Arcadia, one must understand the mandate prophecy Aulen foretold. One day, when the world is in chaos, a king would rise up and unify all the mandates into one. By then, they would be crowned by the matriarch as the emperor and would be given the right to rule the entire world. This was the prophecy that drove Emperor Runmari to conquer most of western Ardell and Eleanor. So confident in himself, he coerced the matriarch into declaring him emperor without even taking control of Elvandor, thinking it would easily submit. And as a result of this declaration from the matriarch, King Akimre, by his own authority, declared himself emperor of the new empire of IKARASAI, beginning the first major war on the continent between the 2 superpowers. The war, known as the First Arcadia-IKARASAI War, lasted 30 years. By the end of it, Elvandor wasn't conquered, but the region of Advan Vagdir was taken by Arcadia, formalized in the Treaty of Agadar. Over 5 sieges were attempted on Elvandor. All of them failed, thanks to the great Lutzar walls protecting the city. Emperor Runmari was even killed at the Battle of Aldia, succeeded by his eldest daughter, Empress Thay I, who sued for peace. After the war, a great era of expansion began. Emperor Akimre launched an all-out war of conquest on the remaining Moktawe clans and the last of the Khanzari kings. His descendants later conquered more land and IKARASAI'd the populations in them. The most notable of the wars of Kintera was the Vagnar Wars. In the 8th century BBA, the Ardell clans were united under a warrior chief known as Vagnar Kadan Daus. Using his new horde of Ardell warriors, he began a conquest of IKARASAI and Kintera. The war lasted for 20 years, and at one point even reaching the outskirts of Alvandor. But due to the lack of logistics and the appearance of several new legions under Emperor Rayhan I, Vagnar was defeated in the Battle of Heldsmere, leading to the Varadells getting conquered by IKARASAI. Later in the 4th century BBA, Emperor Iarnan V has declared the creation of the Northern Orthodox Covenant of Aulen, officially splitting from the authority of the Matriarch to form a council of temple elders and archsatyrs, leading to the largest war on the continent since the first Arcadia-IKARASAI War. The Great Covenant War lasted over 100 years between IKARASAI and Arcadia, led by 4 IKARASAIC emperors and 3 Arcadian ones. This led to Emperor Rayhan II to form the single largest fleet in Ardell, known as the Crimson Fleet, to deter any more attempts to siege Alvandor. The war led to a permanent split between the IKARASAIC Aulenay faith and the Arcadian one, now formed into 2 distinct sects. In the 2nd century BBA, Iarnan VI launched a war of extermination against the Inuktitut tribes of the northern tundra, the only native human population on Kintera who never had their own centralized nation or any sort of kingdom. It's unknown why the Inuktituts were almost entirely destroyed, but evidence suggests they were pagan. They did not believe in Aulen. By the end, the Corosaray became the longest lasting dynasty of IKARASAI, lasting over a millennium and having well over 15 monarchs. They are renowned for creating the IKARASAIC identity, managing to conquer a larger empire than even their own homeland, and defiantly won wars against Arcadia. However, as all things, it came to an end, and for the Corosaray, it collapsed into brutal civil war. The War of the Nine Emperors was the single largest civil war ever fought in IKARASAIC history. In the 5th century ABA, the last Corosaray emperor ascended the throne, Ludzar VI, also known as Ludzar the Horrid, a gluttonous tyrant that ruled for 20 years before succumbing to his own failing body. He was known for his cruelty. He punished his sons severely, leading them to become just as cruel as he was. He violated many IKARASAIC royal customs, even cursing Aulen on multiple occasions. He also was known to have many affairs with his servants, court ladies, and even some witches, often against their own will. Before he died, before IKARASAI can be freed from his rule, he made one last despicable act, officially making all of his children, bastard or royal, equally legitimate to the imperial throne. It was unknown why he did this, but many speculated it was his own way of saying, "If I can't rule my empire after death, no one can." Ludzar had 9 sons and 4 daughters. Unlike in Arcadia, IKARASAI never developed the highly matriarchal society the continent was known for, meaning that it was the sons who inherited the throne first, meaning 4 of his kids were ineligible. General Ulik Radrem immediately declared himself as regent to prevent civil war, making a council in Alvandor between the sons to pick who would become emperor. However, this council failed, as many of the sons knew a civil war was inevitable and built up their own armies, while others, mostly bastards, were manipulated by other noble houses to do their bidding, supporting them with their own armies, leading to a full-scale civil war. But the war could not come at a worse time. To the far east, hundreds of ships migrated from a faraway land up to Visera Island, settling en masse, led by a war chief known as Agnamon Viakar, in their language Agnamon, Iron Fist. These settlers were known as the Volks, and they began to raid and invade Veritable villages and towns, migrating and settling deeper into northern Kentera. This unexpected force caused the demographics of the region to change drastically, and the Volks became a staple in IKARASAI politics. By the end, the war lasted over a century and a half, and only 4 emperors remained: Gararevia I, Rehan III, and Iralon II. But in this conflict, a new dynasty was about to rise from a previously minor noble house from Raithalmar, known as the Dorman Yazir, leading to the rise of IKARASAI's greatest emperor,